Hi, second grade Cougars. It's Mrs. Belatesh again. And before we get started on our lesson this week, I just want to do a quick little review of some of our vocabulary. Matter. Everything that takes up space is matter. I matter, you're matter. These words are matter. Matter on Earth can be three types: solid, liquid, or gas. This is a solid, and last week we talked a lot about different solids. When we discussed the solids and we described them, we were talking about their properties. We talked about whether they were flexible, and that means it bends, or whether they were rigid, that it does not bend. I want to introduce two more words that we discussed in first grade, and one of them is the word transparent. My glasses are transparent. I can see right through them. The other word is opaque. This book is opaque. I could not see through the book. So transparent means you can see right through it. Opaque means you cannot see through it. Okay, so boys and girls, I want you to get out your science notebook. And I've already glued mine in. I'm sorry, I got a little ahead of myself. I want you to get this page, properties of solid objects. And I trimmed mine a little bit so that it would fit in the notebook. And then I glued it to the page. So please go ahead and do that now. All right, now I'm looking at it, at my notebook, and there are the objects at the top: the cylinder, the triangle, the tube, the cloth, the stick, the wire, and the screw. And if you want, you can have all those materials out in front of you. And then on the other side, going down, are the properties. So at the top are the objects, and the bottom on the side are the properties. And remember, properties mean what? How we describe something, right? So what I want us to do is to go across and find out which of these items are round. So could you please, I'm just gonna give you a model. I'm gonna model it with the first one. So the cylinder, is that round? Yes, so I'm gonna put a check in the column where it says round and cylinder. Is the triangle round? No. Because the definition of a triangle is it has three sides. So a triangle is not round. Was the tube round? Yes, not round like a ball, but it is curved. So I'm putting a check. Was the cloth round? No. Was the stick round? Well, you know what's interesting? Look at the stick. It's rounded on the ends. So there are parts of the stick that are round. So I'm going to put a check. Was the wire round? Yes, it was round around the outside. And was the screw round? Yes. So I did the first row. Would you guys please go through the paper, go through each of the properties, and check whether each of those items, it has that property. There's one thing I want you to add at the bottom. Do you see at the bottom it says transparent? That means you can see through it. Also write the word opaque. We just talked about that, opaque. So write the word opaque. So I want you to go through all of the items and check whether they have these properties. Okay, so boys and girls, I completed my chart, and these are the answers that I have. Okay? Perfect. Okay, so now that we've talked about, oh, you know what? I forgot to put the date on my notebook page. Always put the date. The date for me today is 9/3/2020. You guys are going to be doing this on a different day. You put the day that you are doing this lesson, okay? I apologize. It's one of the most important things is to always have the date. And do I have a page number? I don't. I'm going to put the page number at the bottom as well. So I have the date, I have the chart, and I have the page number. Okay, so boys and girls, I'm going to share something with you that came with my kits after I had passed all of the kits out. So you don't have these in your science bag. I am sorry. So I have some items that are all the same. They're all the same size. They're different colors though, right? There are these rectangles. I have 8 different ones. Okay? And I want to share with you what these things are. So this is a rectangle and it's made out of rubber. It's made out of rubber. So let's think. What are some of the properties we can talk about? It is black. What is the word that means it's like this? It's flexible. I can't see through it. It is opaque. So even though this is just one piece, it has many different properties. It's not just a rectangle. It's not just black. It can have more than one property. Okay, here's another exact same size rectangle, exactly the same. But this one is metal, so it's shiny. And, oh, what does it mean that when it doesn't bend? It is rigid, okay? It's rigid. It's also opaque. Again, these can have more than one property. Here is another rectangle. It's made out of wood. It is rigid. It is opaque. It's very lightweight. This one is. This one is made out of paper. It is more flexible than the wood. It's also opaque. This is made out of plastic. It's a little flexible, not as flexible as the paper. This one is made out of cloth. And guess what? It's really, what's the word? Flexible and opaque. This one is made out of leather. And boys and girls, it's a little stiff, it's a little rigid, and a little flexible. It is not as flexible as the cloth, but not as rigid as the wood. And this one is ceramic. It's a tile. And tiles or ceramics actually made out of clay, which is an earth material. And we're going to learn about this later. And it's really rigid and hard and opaque. So even though these are all the same size and the same shape, they're different by the types of materials that they're made out of. So each one of these materials has different properties. Materials is the stuff that things are made out of. So this one is metal. This is a metal material. This one is rubber. It's very different. If I wanted to build a tower, I would not make it out of rubber. I would make it out of metal. If I wanted to make a car tire, I would not make it out of metal. I'd make it out of rubber. The material and the properties of the material help us know what that material can be turned into. Okay, boys and girls, I want us to go back to our very first page that we glued in when we talked about the material, the object and the material. So we said that the cylinder was made out of wood. The triangle was made out of plastic. The tube was made out of plastic. The cloth was made out of cotton. And we noticed that each one of those materials had different properties. When you are building or when you're making something, you have to be mindful of the type of material you're going to use. So I think it's interesting the word material actually has the word matter kind of hidden in it, doesn't it? Because the material is the stuff that your object is made out of. and matter makes up everything. Okay, so boys and girls, I got my materials out again, and I got this page that says object grouping. And I'm going to use it as a way to group materials based on their properties. And I'm going to give you an example, but then what I want you to do is I want you to go around and take turns coming up with different groups of materials based on their properties. I'm going to start. So I'm going to use this cylinder and the stick, and I'm going to say these objects share the property of being opaque. And objects that have this property can be used for blocking the light, right? If you don't want the light to come in, you need something opaque. All right, now, giving you an example, maybe Mrs. Jung, it's her turn. And Mrs. Jung says she is going to use the wire and the cloth. And she might say these objects share the property of being flexible. And objects that have this property can be used for, what about connecting things, right? If I wanted to use the cloth, I could use it to tie something together. The wire I could use to wrap around and connect something. So what I want you to do is I want you to take turns putting these materials into groups of items that have the same properties. Okay, so boys and girls, that's it for this week. There are some things I want you to read in your science textbook. So you read the first one, all about matter, everything matters. Now I want you to read the section that says solid objects and materials. And, oh, that's a lot of fun things in there. And then next week, we are going to be doing some engineering. So we're going to build some towers out of different things. And we'll read the stuff about towers after we do our building. Okay? I'll see you next time, Cougars.